Much for taking time to chat with me. Really enjoyed the film. My name is Sean and I'm with FandomWire. So I do want to start by just talking about the origins of this project. Like, where did this story come to you? What interested you in telling this story?
Yeah, so my background, I'm Afro-Caribbean. My father was born in Jamaica, and I've always been interested in learning more about our history, the history of the African diaspora, and its connections to West Africa. And a lot of that history and a lot of that culture, we're told, doesn't really exist anymore. It's just everything is kind of more through a Western colonial lens. And the older I got, the more I realized that's not true. Like a lot of this history does exist, but it's like hidden in our music, in our food, and most powerfully in our spiritual tradition. So I became very interested in Vodou, Santeria, Candomblé. I lived in Brazil for a while. And yeah, when I found out the zombie was connected to Haitian voodoo, that just like blew my mind, and that it was like this metaphor for slavery. I was like, wow, I just like it just blew my mind that that was the connection. And I didn't know that, and very few people know that. And I had to do this film.
Yeah, and I think this appropriation of Haitian culture is not an isolated incident in the horror genre. We see a lot of cultural appropriation in horror. Why do you think that the horror genre is so prone to this?
I mean, I don't think it's just horror, to be honest. I think film in general, like people will get inspired by something somewhere, like, and there's so many people who work in film. There's the writers, there's the directors, there's the production. Like people will get inspired and take things and then put them in a film, and then that stuff then gets reproduced in other films, and we just like lose its connection, its meaning. Like I think this is just unfortunately one of the things that happens in cultural mediums, and it's why we have to be really cognizant of where things come from so that we're aware like that certain things have been misrepresented and shouldn't be used in kind of an exploitative way. So I don't think it's specific to horror, but obviously what horror often does with these things, because horror is meant to scare, it will make things that aren't supposed to be scary at all frightening. And I think that's why, voodoo's become this idea of black magic. Like it very much, early zombie films was what made that connection, and we don't even know that, like that it was zombie films, these early zombie films that brought voodoo to the fore in Hollywood and made these kind of like sorcery, black magic, evil doer connections, visual connections that we still use today.
Yeah, and do you think that there's like a line to be drawn between like appropriation and homage? Do you think it is where it turns it into something else? Like where do you think that line is?
I think there's a filmmaker in the film. Her name is Xanda Shea Brown, and she says it really eloquently. I think it's about intention. It's like what is your purpose for using these stories, and that's why I think it's so important for you to know, for filmmakers to know the origin story of the zombie, so then as they're crafting their narratives, they're really thinking about their intentions and why they are using certain things and when. So if it's like, this is cool, I'm gonna make, a really bloody scene that's scary, and I'm gonna like use this culture because it like I can make it look really cool. And that's, it's like, okay, well, you're not being very respectful to the culture, and you're not thinking about it, and the repercussions that this has, by making something scary that isn't intended to be scary. So I think it's about intentions, it's about respect. Um, yeah, fundamentally, and it's like, really understanding the power of cinema and how like what you make in these films will be often widely seen and then reproduced and like will have repercussions. And something like culture in Haiti, Vodou, and like the history of Haiti, which is so fascinating, so powerful. Like, isn't there there's ways to make homage to that I think could be really important, but a lot of the films we've seen to date have done the complete opposite.
Yeah, and you obviously talk about like respect being the important thing, and I definitely agree with that. Obviously, I think your film does a lot of like information, and like that's a very important first step to respect. What do you think else can be done to help foster this respect?
Well, I would love to see more films by Haitian filmmakers supported. That would be amazing if there was actually more narratives coming from Haiti in the like larger film realm. That would be awesome. So I think that's the first step, really. I think it's important to have, we have often just like stories that kind of tell the same thing over and over again. And I think there's like so many amazing stories coming from Haiti, from the Caribbean that could be told and just don't get the support.
Yeah, that it's disappointing, but I definitely think you're right about that. But I think, in terms of like the modern horror genre, we've seen the so-called trend of like social horror. But I would make the argument, and I think you would agree based on your film, that it's a testament that horror has always been socially relevant. So why do you think that horror as a genre is so inseparable from its social context?
Hmm. That's a great question. I think when you watch a horror film, you're always kind of going through a journey of unknown, and then where you end up, like who stays alive, who dies, what you see, what ghosts are revealed. It always feels like there's a strong message behind that. Like the final message is always very poignant. So I think it's hard for people to walk away from a film without thinking about why did it end that way? What did we just see? What does this mean? And I think there's a lot of meaning that can be extracted from horror films, and that's why social relevance can be so impactful in these films because you can make like I mean Get Out is like such a great example of this. What a way to tell the story of racism and white supremacy through like this kind of family that body snatches black men. Like, it's just it was so effective. So, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Um, and like you said earlier, the film has this discussion of how zombies are this symbol of oppression and enslavement, but I think your film also ends on like a very hopeful, empowering note. So what do you think is like the power of art and specifically cinema of like reclaiming lost power?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a film nerd, obviously. And so I love films about films. That's like, give me a film about a film. I will love it any day. And I think that, like films have like this mass appeal and power to change perception, to change our understanding of the world, to change our worldview. Like it's a very powerful medium. It uses audio, music, visuals, like emotion, narrative, like all the like it's just so amazing and powerful, but it can be positive and it can be negative. Like we can we can use it in an incredibly enhancing and empowering way, or we can use it in a really um, exploitative and oppressive way. And so I think when you're a filmmaker, you take a lot of responsibility when you make work. And I hope, after watching this film, people, acknowledge that and kind of acknowledge the harms that have been done, especially to Haitian voodoo and the Haitian people through film and Hollywood specifically. And, look and are open to kind of different ways of thinking about these stories, different stories coming through, because I think you could take the Haitian zombie, you could take the Haitian Revolution and make some like incredible stories around that and make that part of like the common narratives and like yeah, I think there's like so much potential in actually these like original stories to shape our worldview in a more positive way. And like Errol, the voodoo priest in the film, says, like the world can learn a lot from Haitian history and like we're about resistance and like the Haitian Revolution was a revolution that happened during the same era as the US Revolution, the same era as the French Revolution, and never gets talked about. It is the first Black slave revolution. It is incredible, and no one knows about this revolution. And this came from Haiti. And like this, like I have so much. respect. And I really wanted to like honor the Haitian Vodou practitioners because they hold a lot of these stories in their practices. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and obviously the direct representations of this voodoo culture, a lot of them are in the past, and there's been a lot of evolution of them, some for good, some for bad, a lot for bad, probably. But how have you seen, in your research, this like evolve through the years?
Not good. Not
Right.
good. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I haven't seen anyone really like very many big films, big blockbuster films really look at, well, Vodou in a different way, except most recently Sinners. Like
Mhm.
Sinners definitely brought African-derived spirituality, hoodoo, Vodou, sometimes it's also called in that context, and showed it in a very like different light. So, and really like foregrounded its healing practices, which is like a big part of voodoo. So, yeah, but it hasn't hasn't been much. But I hope that we see a lot more of it.
Yeah, and I know that this is like kind of like a big question that you've touched a lot on, but just kind of in general, why do you think it is important for people to know this history and this story, even if it's not their culture?
Oh, so that that we don't, it's not like the history is not repeated, like that
Yeah.
this like exploitive and incredibly racist view of like Haitian Vodou is not, this doesn't continue, and that, people are very aware where the zombie comes from, and when they're dealing with zombie narratives, they're sensitive to its history. So, yeah, the only way to make sure history doesn't repeat itself is to know your history. Like, I think that's rule number one. So that's why it's so important.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that's my time. So thank you so much for chatting with me. I
Thanks,
really
Sean.
enjoyed the film and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.